Okay, picture this. Cold, hard steel. The cage around the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And inside, two guys locked in, not just for a win, but to finally end this, like, brutal 2-year thing between them.
Yeah, that's intense. And in the broadcast booth, a time traveler from 1986 calling the action.
Wow.
And that was the heart of Saturday Night's Main Event number 39, wasn't it?
Exactly. Okay, let's dive into this. You know, when you lock two people inside a steel cage, you're really setting a particular scene.
Oh, absolutely. It's meant to be brutal, violent. It's supposed to be the definitive end, right? Nowhere to run.
Exactly. The ultimate showdown structure. And that's what we're looking at today, this recent cage match at Saturday Night's Main Event. Drew McIntyre versus Damian Priest.
Yeah, and it was billed as the big finale for their feud, this cycle of destruction, they called it.
We've got quite a bit to unpack here. Accounts of the match, some really interesting analysis of the commentary that night, and reports on the fallout, including some, well, pretty big news.
So our goal here is to really get into it. The action inside the cage, obviously, but also this, let's say, colorful commentary from a legend.
And that controversial ending, for sure. Plus what it means going forward, especially with that news that broke afterwards. It's a look behind the curtain, really.
And we should probably set the stage a bit. This wasn't just some random match. This feud goes back over a year.
It does. It really ignited when Priest cashed in Money in the Bank on Drew right after he'd won the title at WrestleMania.
Ouch! Yeah, that's the kind of thing that sticks with you, cost him the championship.
Totally. And since then, they've injured each other, had multiple battles.
Back and forth, violence, interference, just chaos. So this cage match, the idea was, okay, this has to end the cycle.
Makes sense. Put him in the corner.
Yeah, and the rules were pretty standard cage rules, you know?
Right.
Pinfall, submission, or get out of the cage.
Over the top or through the door.
Right. Either way works.
So just setting that scene.
Yeah.
That visual, the cage lowering, the pyro.
Yeah.
It really looked impressive, symbolizing the hell they were entering.
But before we even got to the match, there was that quick little moment backstage, kind of intriguing.
With Jey Uso and John Cena.
That's the one. Jey was the World Heavyweight Champion then, defending later. He runs into Cena.
Just a quick encounter, but packed with potential meaning.
Yeah.
And there was this, like, playful vibe, but also tension.
Yeah.
Jey right away says, hey, last time we met, I threw you out of the Rumble.
Yeah.
Cena laughed it off, called it very funny. But then he pivoted, didn't he?
He did. Talked about their next meeting, but also about Jey's upcoming title match against Logan Paul.
And that's where it got pointed.
And Cena says if a YouTuber wins that belt, it would ruin wrestling.
Wait, hang on. Didn't Cena himself say not that long ago that he wanted to ruin wrestling?
Exactly. That's the twist, right?
Yeah. Definitely felt like maybe Cena was planting a seed for something down the line. He wished Jey luck, but...
He added that he'd be watching closely. And coming from Cena, who'd already wrestled earlier, that felt significant. Like, maybe he's not done yet.
Yeah, a little breadcrumb for everyone watching. And, you know, adding to the whole SNME vibe, they showed Leilani Kai and Tatanka in the crowd. Nice little touches.
Yeah, those nods to history are always cool. So then, it was time.
The steel cage.
Yeah. And adding another layer to this whole thing was the guest commentator.
None other than Jesse the Body Ventura.
Yep. Gave it that classic Saturday Night's Main Event vibe.
But Ventura on commentary.
Oh.
Wow, that became its own story, didn't it? Based on the analysis we saw.
It really did. He was there with Michael Cole and Pat McAfee. They even showed old footage of Ventura wrestling in that same arena back in '86.
And Ventura was quick to claim he set a record that night, wrestling and commentating on the same show.
Uh-huh. And then he immediately accused Pat McAfee of trying to copy him, wrestling Gunther at Backlash, though he made sure to point out he won his match and McAfee didn't.
Classic Ventura. And then there was the thing with him talking over Lillian Garcia during the rules.
Yeah, apparently that got some laughs backstage. It's generally a big no-no for announcers to do that.
But what really jumped out from the analysis was, well, how sort of out of touch some of his commentary felt. And frankly, factually inaccurate at times.
Oh, definitely. Like claiming McAfee was only the second broadcaster to ever wrestle in the ring.
Right. Forgetting Jim Ross, Jerry Lawler, and even Michael Cole sitting right next to him.
Which led to Cole's great little comeback about being undefeated at WrestleMania against Lawler. Ventura seemed genuinely surprised by that. Which just prompts Ventura to snap back. Who the hell did you wrestle? It was amazing in a way.
It's totally off the rails. And then, as Drew was coming out, Ventura's questioning why he'd even want a cage match.
And Cole had to immediately correct him like, Jesse, Drew's actually 3-0 in cage matches.
And Ventura just goes, I don't care.
just dismissed it.
During Drew McIntyre's entrance, there was a graphic.
Yeah. A graphic popped up, pretty standard, showed his stats.
Okay, what did it say?
It listed his career record in steel cage matches as 3-0, and then his head-to-head against Damian Priest, 2-2.
Right, okay. Just setting the scene, typical stuff.
Exactly. But the interesting part, the part you flagged, was right below that. The graphic made this historical claim.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
It stated pretty clearly that this was the first steel cage match on Saturday night's main event since 1987. But here's where it gets, well, complicated based on what you heard next.
Right, because the commentary team, they didn't let that stand, did they?
No, not at all. Almost instantly, you noted, Michael Cole jumped in while McIntyre was still walking down. And he basically said, hold on a sec, that's not quite right. There have been other cage matches on SNME.
Okay, so a live correction. Did they say which ones?
They did. They mentioned Hulk Hogan versus Paul Orndorff back in '87, which, fair enough, that was on SNME.
A memorable one, too.
Definitely. But Cole, he also brought up another one. Hogan versus the Big Boss Man.
Ah, okay. And that one's key because
that Boss Man match was after 1987. It aired in 1989 on SNME number 21. So that directly contradicts the graphic saying 87 was the last one.
Gotcha. And you noticed something else about that Boss Man match timing.
Yeah, this is a neat little detail. That Hogan Boss Man match back in '89, it aired on Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, wow. Just like this show is airing on Memorial Day weekend.
Exactly. A nice bit of historical symmetry that came up right there in the correction.
So you've got this prepared graphic with one fact, and then the live commentary immediately providing, well, the correct history. It kept happening. Ventura insisted NBC wouldn't have shown cage matches back in the 80s on Saturday night's main event.
Despite SNME airing several famous ones. Matches that Jesse himself called.
And he said that more than once.
Yep. During McIntyre's entrance, and then you caught it again during Damian Priest's entrance.
Okay, but wait. He's saying this after Cole already corrected the graphic and specifically mentioned previous cage matches on SNME.
That's the striking part. So it's like, no need to repeat yourself. I ignored you the first time. Cole and McAfee had to remind him right then and there.
It was constant. Like, you needed a fact checker sitting next to him the whole time.
One recap definitely described it like that, like watching with someone who hadn't seen wrestling in 30 years. And even tiny things, like you mentioned, catching that cough on the mic during some talk about turnbuckles. But weirdly, some people found it charming, entertaining in its own bizarre way.
I guess it was definitely memorable. And the violence started immediately.
Right away. Drew McIntyre attacked Damian Priest before Priest even got properly in the cage. He didn't even wait for the bell or for the door to shut properly.
Nope. Straight attack on Priest. And he brings 2 steel chairs into the cage with him. And the start was just pure brawling, wasn't it?
Forearm smashes, knife-edge chops that sounded painful, Priest hitting the lifting flatliner, super kicks. They were trying to maim each other, as one source put it.
Lots of driving each other into the steel mesh, eye rakes, just pure intensity. That lawn dart spot looked nasty.
Brutal stuff.
After the break, the action ramps up again. Priest hits a move, kind of like the Claymore, then his South of Heaven finisher.
But McIntyre kicks out, big near fall. Priest then tries to climb out.
Drew stops him, though. And this leads to that huge spot.
The superplex, off the very top of the cage. One source called it the old Hogan Bossman spot, right? A clear callback.
And what was crazy was Drew just kipped right back up afterwards. Showed incredible resilience.
Classic Drew McIntyre. He follows that up with his own Claymore, but Priest kicks out again.
Another huge near fall. And then, showing how long this feud has gone, how well they know each other, Drew hits Priest with Priest's own move. The South of Heaven chokeslam.
But still only a near fall. Intense stuff. And those chairs Drew brought in earlier, they came back into play.
McIntyre used one on Priest's gut and back. Ouch. Just laying into him.
And what's Ventura talking about during this? The referee.
Oh my God, yes. Questioning if the ref gets a full paycheck just for counting pins or submissions or watching escapes, since there's no DQs or countouts in the cage.
And McAfee pointed out it's a hazardous working environment.
Right.
And that's hilarious because Jesse was the guy who wanted to unionize pro wrestling back in 1986.
Wow. Okay. Unionize pro wrestling.
In 1986.
So why didn't it happen?
Ah, that's interesting. Under oath, apparently, during the discovery for that royalty lawsuit filed by Jesse Ventura back in 1990.
1990.
Yeah. McMahon allegedly admitted that, yes, Hulk Hogan informed him about Jesse Ventura's efforts to unionize the wrestlers. And that, effectively shut the whole idea down before it could really gain any traction.
Wow. And then, Jesse said he wanted to keep track of the referees and the speed of their count.
It's a conspiracy, pointing fingers, and kept doubting the speed of the counts, even when replays showed they were fine.
Right.
It's a conspiracy, McMahon.
Wow. The sources described it as, sometimes distracting, but also having this weird nostalgic charm, like watching with your uncle who hasn't seen wrestling since 1988.
Exactly. But while Jesse was doing his thing...
Inside the cage, McIntyre and Priest were just tearing into each other. Exactly what you'd expect.
Absolutely brutal.
But all of this, the near falls, the weapons, the commentary, it's all building, right? Building towards the finish. The finish that got everybody talking, McIntyre wedges that second chair in the corner. Looks like he's setting up the Claymore. Gonna drive Priest face first into it.
But Priest ducks. McIntyre hits the chair himself. Hard.
And Priest jumps on it, grabs the chair, drives it right into McIntyre's throat. Vicious.
And then he grabs the other chair.
The concerto. That move is loaded with history, isn't it? Priest used it to take out Edge, his mentor, the guy who basically invented the move. Symbolic and brutal.
Totally. So Priest delivers the concerto. McIntyre's out cold, not moving. Priest just stands over him. And the rules are pinfall, submission, or escape the cage door, or over the top. Both feet hit the floor.
He could pin him right there. End it definitively.
But he doesn't. He turns, walks toward the cage door, pauses right on the last step, looks back at McIntyre.
And then just steps out. Steps onto the floor, wins by escaping through the door.
And the crowd reaction was not great. Underwhelming is putting it mildly. Lots of boos.
And Ventura, on commentary, he lost it. One source said he was apoplectic, calling it BS, yelling about why Priest didn't climb out, calling him a coward. Just totally trashing the finish live on air. He even mockingly said, that was exciting, wasn't it, walking out the door.
And why didn't he call up and have the limo driver waiting to open it for him? Burying the winner and the finish as it happened. And then the aftermath. McIntyre, after that concerto, refuses medical help.
Yeah. Priest had said someone would leave on a stretcher, but Drew gets up and walks out under his own power, defying that threat.
So, okay, let's unpack that finish. Walking out the door after a concerto, what was that about?
It felt flat, didn't it, after all that violence?
Well, there are two main takes. Cole, on commentary, tried to sell it as the ultimate insult. Like, Priest beat him so bad he didn't even need to pin him. Just walking away was enough disrespect.
I mean, I guess I see the logic.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel like that watching it. It felt cheap.
And that's the other side. A lot of people, fans, reviewers, felt it was, let's say, shitty booking. That for this feud, this blood feud, walking out the door was just anticlimactic, weak. Diminished the whole match. The escape rule itself is divisive, goes way back. Some like the drama potential, others hate it. But in this specific context, after that brutal finish, walking out felt wrong to a lot of people. Indefensible, some said.
And the crowd seemed to agree. They were really getting behind Drew during the match, weren't they? Even though he was supposed to be the heel.
They absolutely were. Which leads to this other idea floating around. The double turn. Yeah, think about it. Controversial finish. The babyface winner, Priest, gets buried by commentary, looks like a coward walking out, while the heel loser, McIntyre, refuses the stretcher, walks out tough.
So maybe it was deliberate. Or maybe it just happened that way. Priest ends up looking like the heel, Drew the face.
Could be either, but the result seems to be a shift in how they're perceived, which is kind of ironic for a match meant to end their story definitively.
Totally. And Drew walking out, despite the concerto, it suggested he wouldn't be gone too long, right? But we heard differently. Yeah, the news is he's expected to be off TV for the foreseeable future, taking an extended break to recover.
And it's tied to him apparently working hurt for some time. Remember that detail about him maybe not being able to turn his head fully left?
Right. So this cage match, on top of backlash and everything else, it seems like it took its toll. The sources say this match was the planned end of his current run before this break.
Which is a big deal. He's a major player on whatever show he's on. But look, if he's hurt, he absolutely needs the time off. Health comes first.
Absolutely.
Let's take a look at what Dave Meltzer had to say about this match.
Okay, so first up, the rating Meltzer gave it.
3 3/4 stars. Which, in his system, that's pretty good. Very solid match.
It sets the baseline. But the notes, that's where the why comes in.
Right, and a lot of that why is outside the ropes. Like the commentary, he spent some time on Jesse Ventura.
Yeah, he mentioned the nostalgia was strong.
Yeah.
Said he loves Ventura's delivery, which is, well, that's significant praise.
It is. But then he also said it was, quote, a bit sad when Ventura messed up on something specific.
And reacted poorly to the finish, yeah.
And that contrast is interesting, right? He sees the positive history, the delivery style.
But he's also critical of a stumble that, for him, impacted the viewing.
Exactly. It shows commentary isn't just wallpaper. It's an active part of the experience he's judging.
And sticking with commentary, he also brought up Michael Cole.
Ah, yes. The near fall point. Cole apparently indicated something wasn't the finish, basically giving it away.
Right. Like, it's how the announcers are taught.
Which is a fascinating point Meltzer often touches on, that conflict between, say, standard production training and just letting the suspense build naturally.
So it's not just a one-off complaint about Cole.
No, it feels like he's critiquing the whole approach, the system, maybe comparing it to what he thinks builds better drama.
Okay, so that's the rating and the commentary angle.
Yeah.
But Meltzer always brings in the crowd reaction.
He does, and here he specifically noted the fans really started backing McIntyre after a chokeslam.
That's a key detail. It tells you something about the match's story connecting.
Yeah, Meltzer uses crowd noise as a kind of barometer. Is the story landing? Is it getting the reaction it's supposed to?
So the chokeslam wasn't just a move. It was a turning point for the crowd energy, according to his notes.
Precisely. And that energy carried on even after the match ended.
Right, the concerto bit. He noted fans chanting, "One more time," as Priest was leaving.
That's a big signal, isn't it? It tells you that moment, the concerto, landed hard emotionally, maybe even more than the actual finish.
It shows what really stuck with the live audience.
Absolutely. It becomes the takeaway moment for them.
And then, shifting gears a bit, there was that physical detail, the injury note.
Oh, yeah, Damian Priest. Meltzer wrote he had nasty swelling under his left eye.
Oof. That kind of grounds everything, doesn't it?
It does, including something like nasty swelling reminds you, look, beneath the storyline and the performance, this stuff is physically punishing.
After the match, we go to commercial where we see an ad for Worlds Collide and Money in the Bank, both happening in Los Angeles, June 7. And just wrapping up on Ventura, did his commentary add anything positive, or did it just hurt things?
It's really split. Some found the nostalgia and the sheer absurdity entertaining. Others felt it completely detracted, especially at the end, burying Priest, distracting from the story. Apparently, even backstage, people were laughing at some of his unplanned lines.
Okay. So, yeah. It's fascinating how booking, commentary, and real-life circumstances can all collide like that.
Which kind of leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener.
Given that finish, Priest escaping, not pinning, and now Drew McIntyre reportedly taking this extended break, did that cage match really end their cycle? Was it as definitive as promised?
Or could this whole thing, the controversial ending, the potential character shifts we talked about, McIntyre walking out strong despite the beating, could it actually be setting up a totally new chapter for them whenever Drew returns?
Or maybe, like some analysis suggested, was it just a bit of awkward booking for a rivalry that deserved a clearer conclusion? Leaves you wondering where they go from here, doesn't it? Something to think about.